We'll now circle back to the World Teachers' Day story that, of course, news that we brought to you earlier. An education consultant, Dr. Peter Ogudoro, joins us now to discuss the growing shortage of teachers and its consequences. Thank you so much for joining us. Given the urgent global teacher shortage, what practical steps can Nigerian states take to attract more young people into the teaching profession?
Yeah, certainly. We're in a very dangerous place now. We have to first account for why we are where we are. We are where we are in terms of gross teacher shortage, because we are not a people who respect teachers. We are not a people who give teachers the recognition they deserve. We are not a people who pay teachers well, give them remuneration that is commensurate with the indispensable role they play in moving our society forward. So if you want to get the smartest brains in our country into the teaching profession and help them to remain in the industry, then it becomes very important that you first acknowledge them as very important contributors to national development. And the way to make that very obvious is to ensure that you are, respecting every teacher who happens to be in classrooms and give them the opportunity to utilize their skills in ways that will make teaching meaningful to them. So aside from paying them well for the wonderful effort they make to move the country forward, you also have to ensure that you give them the right tools for doing their jobs well. Most teachers today are not very happy with the state of our laboratories in schools. They don't have the tools, they don't have even offices from where they can, do the jobs they have to do. I tell you, the average Nigerian teacher today doesn't even have a place where he can sit down to mark scripts, to do assessment. Those in teaching sciences don't have laboratories where they can work with their children to make them globally competitive, to prepare them for a world that has continued to change. And so let's incentivize young people to go into teaching. That's what societies that are moving forward have done. In England, I remember at a point when they were experiencing this kind of challenge we have now, they had to incentivize young people to go into teaching. And so when you graduate as a teacher in England, at the time they started, whereas other fresh graduates studying biology, chemistry, engineering, even medicine would start on a salary of like £223,000. The average teacher was starting at the level of minimum of £26,000. And even as we speak today, when they recognize that they are having shortage of teachers in basic sciences, including physics and mathematics, what they have done is to incentivize not only teachers in England, but even teachers in other parts of the world to come into England, to come and learn how to teach properly, and also pay them salaries that are globally competitive. So you even find Nigerians who were here teaching physics and mathematics who have not left the shores of our country to go to the United Kingdom to go and teach, because those people are training them for free and paying them about £29,000, in the first year of staying in England to become professionally trained teachers in the context of Western society. And thereafter, you see them earning as much as even £40,000 in a year. Convert that to Naira, and you see how much, a Nigerian teacher is worth in places where people know the value.
Let me ask you.
So we haven't started here.
Sorry to interject at this point, but let me just ask you now, how can Nigeria go about, striking a balance between the need for more teachers and also ensuring high quality teacher training and professional development?
Yeah, first you have to train the trainer. The average professor teaching education in Nigerian faculties of education today is far behind time in terms of pedagogical approaches to making our classrooms work for the average Nigerian child. I would recommend very strongly that the Nigerian government puts money, probably via the platform of Teachers Registration Council, into sending our teachers to places where people know how to train teachers. What we are doing in faculties of education across the country doesn't look like what will take us to where we need to be. And so, but if we can't afford to take every teacher out of the country to a place like Finland to learn how to run proper classrooms, then we should get our colleagues in Finland to come over here. Let's spend money and bring them over to Nigeria to help us prepare the Nigerian teacher on how to run a modern classroom. The kind of teaching we are doing now is a teaching that is so much into promoting rote learning, which makes it very difficult for our children to be able to transfer learning to real life situations. And so you find engineers who can't fix anything, you find medical doctors who are struggling to be able to do proper diagnosis, and you find even pharmacists who probably have never entered the factory where drugs are made. So this is the way to go. Let's incentivize young people to go into teaching and let government pay proper salary and equip the laboratories and ensure that no matter how much of complaint we have in terms of Nigeria is a poor country, we must ensure that teachers are paid well so that even after we have trained them, they will have enough incentive to remain in our country and do the job that we are training and paying them for.
Now, when it comes to teachers now, when it comes to, the state of the nation, when it comes to education, we talk about the government a lot and the part that it has to play. But tell me, what role can the public-private partnership play in improving teacher retention and also working conditions in Nigeria?
I do not always like to get involved in conversations that wants to hand over the responsibility of training teachers and paying teachers well, transferring that responsibility to private sector people. Private sector people are, as we all know, essentially business people. And so when you let your education system get run by business people, they will run it as a business. Education is a social good that hardly brings profit in the short run. So the profit that comes from education comes by way of having citizens who are literate enough to be able to think for themselves, to be able to demonstrate critical thinking, demonstrate, patriotism, because you have trained them in line with the objectives you are pursuing as a state. Businesses pursue business objectives, and education is not there primarily to pursue business objectives, especially when you're looking at it from a collective perspective. It's only when you individualize it and then you take a utilitarian approach to education that you will not start talking about private sector people doing it. And that is not going to work for Nigeria. At this level of development, what Nigeria needs is to get government to take up the responsibility of training young people so that they will pick up the right philosophy of life and realize that Nigeria belongs to them, and Nigeria is a country that is beautiful in terms of design by God. And if all of us work together and work hard enough, we will be able to harness the resources that God has put in our hands to take us to where we need to be. But if we keep waiting for private sector people to give you the money to train your teachers, to train your children, you are probably looking in the wrong direction. That we haven't got to that level of development. We are not America. Go to Finland, a country that is beautiful in every sense of it, where equity, fairness, and justice, is something that you find everywhere you go. The government takes responsibility for training over 98% of the Finnish children who are in the school system. I think Nigeria should adopt that model. We shouldn't follow the capitalist model for running our education system. It won't work for us.
All right, let's look at government policies now. In your view, how well are the current government policies addressing, the root causes of teacher attrition, especially in the rural and undeveloped areas?
There's hardly anything we're doing about that, really, because the average smart person who has chosen to be a teacher is unwilling to teach in the suburbs. He's willing to teach in a rural community, because rural communities are places that are for you to do education as an educator, as a professional teacher, in the way it has to be done today. Electricity is problematic in rural communities. They haven't got adequate and smooth and reliable internet access. You need good internet access to be able to run a modern classroom so that you are able to interact with your colleagues in other parts of the world and then be able to take resources from the internet every time you need it on a real-time basis from a global platform. So rural communities in Nigeria are not places where that type of opportunity exists, and so we must recognize that we have to do things differently, because the smart teachers don't want to live in rural communities, because rural community schools, again, especially when we are talking about private schools, don't pay good wages. And so nobody wants to go and spend 6 years learning how to teach and then getting professionally certified and end up in suburbs where your remuneration per month is not more than 50,000 naira. How much food can 50,000 naira put on the table for a woman or a man who has a family of 4 or 5? So that's where we are, and it's definitely a dangerous place for us to be.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Peter Ogudoro, for having this conversation with us.